Hello, welcome to another video tutorial on building Shiny apps. In the last video, we saw how to use download button and download handler functions in Shiny, and we saw how to download a base plot in PNG file format. This video is continuation to the previous video, and we will see how to use download button and download handler to download information from Shiny apps in different file formats such as Excel, text, or doc. We will also see how to use the function switch and use it in our app. So let's get started. Okay, so we are in our studio and I am in the R working directory where I have the UI.R and server.R files already. List.files. Okay, and let's go ahead and run the app. Since I'm already in the R working directory, I can just use the run app command for our function. And here is our app. So basically, the idea behind this is, again, this is just a demonstration. The app might not look good, very good, but the objective is just for demonstration. So on the left hand side we have the sidebar panel. The first widget we have is selectInput, which has a list of data sets. These are the data sets which comes inbuilt with R, the iris, empty cars, and trees data set. User can select any of these data sets, and what would happen is when the user makes selection here, uh, in the main panel we will see the observations corresponding to that particular data set. So if I choose empty cars, I will have the data set, the observations corresponding to that particular data set. If I choose trees, I will get all the observations of that particular data set. Next we have the file formats. So just in case, imagine I want to download this information or whatever the information is in this table in my system. And so the format type radioButtons here allows me to choose what kind of format I would like to download. So I have Excel format, which is comma separated variable delimiter. We have text format, tab separated. We have another text format which will have just the space separated variables, and then we also have doc. So I can select any of these and download my data. The third one here is the download button. So what would happen is if I click on this download button, it would trigger the download and download the information which is here in the table in the format selected here. So right now it is text space separated, and so if I click on download, it will download this information in my system in the text format. And certainly behind the scenes, this UI is interacting with server.R and making all this happen. So let's go ahead and click on the download button to see what is happening. Okay, I clicked on download button. It says trees.txt because that was the data set, and txt text was the download format. I can save it here. You can change the location wherever you want, and I click on save, and so it saved this particular data in a text file called trees.txt. Okay, here we have the UI.R and server.R files. In the UI.R, make sure that the Shiny package is loaded. We have the Shiny UI telling this is the UI.R file, or basically the user interface piece of Shiny. We are using fluid page, title panel. In the title panel, we are displaying the title as demonstration of file download using download button and download handler. Aligned it center so that it appear in the center. In the sidebar layout, we have two things: sidebar panel and the main panel. In the sidebar panel, we have these widgets. The first one is selectInput, and we have just followed the syntax, and it displays the choices as iris, empty cars, or trees dataset. Then we have the help text, which displays the text. Select the download format. Then we also have the radio button widget, and we just followed the syntax once again. And the radio button choices are as Excel text, comma text space separated doc. Once again, we have help text saying click on the download button to download the dataset observations. We have the download button, um, and in the download button, this is basically the syntax we have just followed. And download data is the ID, and download, the second argument here, is the label, so which would appear on the button. And in the main panel, we are just using table output to display the information in the table, and this table inside the parenthesis is basically the output coming from server.R. Let's run the app to see what we have. So we ran the app and we saw that we have the sidebar panel ready, and now we have to code in server.R so that we can get the observations corresponding to the selected data set, as well as code the download handler so that we can download the file. Let's go to server.R. Okay, in server.R we just have the skeleton here, and it says library shiny server function is the usual skeleton we use. And so what we want is we want to display the information or the observations in the table. So we need to create the table, right? So it will be done using render table function, and whatever, oops, what happened, render table. Okay, so whatever is the output of render table, let me store that in table, as this output variable table is what we are going to use here, and we have table output table. So this is the output variable name. We are using render table, and what we will do here is we want to fetch the observations corresponding to the data set user has selected. Now, one solution to this is, or one option is, to use the ID dataset which contains the choice from the user selection, and then maybe use it here to fetch the information, right? But what we need is this observation, this information or the observations from the data set is not just used here to populate the table, but will also be used further when we are doing the download, so that the observations could be written in the file. So basically the idea is to use a reactive function here to fetch the observations from the selected data set, so that the reactive function could be used wherever needed versus fetching the information multiple times, multiple places. So let's go ahead and use the reactive function, and we will call it as dataset input. Let's say reactive because we want the reactive function, and let's write the code here to select the dataset sorry, to fetch the observations based on the selection from the user. And here we will introduce a new function called switch. And switch is basically like maybe to make you understand, it's like it will have a string and it will try to make matches. Wherever it sees the match corresponding to that, it will do some operation or perform some activity, or do some does some evaluation or something like that. We will see. So what we want to match, okay, we want to match whatever user selection is, and it is stored in data set. So we will say input dollar data set. This is what user has selected. Now we will tell in switch, this is the user selection, match it to the following, or the match this to the list. So we, in the list we had iris, and so if it is iris, what you need to do is fetch the observations, right? Okay, if it is empty cars, fetch empty cars observation. And that we do, if you write in our console the empty cars, it will give you all the observations. And if it is trees, I want to get the observations for the trees dataset. Now here, just to clarify, here you could have used any other observations. You could have said summary iris, say for example, in case you want to display in the table the summary of iris. Or maybe if you want to just populate couple of observations, you can say head iris. If you want, say, the mean of any particular variable, what I want to say is, basically the way switch works is, it will have a string or a number here. If it is a string, it will try to match in the list here. Wherever it finds a match corresponding to that, whatever expression is given, it evaluates or performs that expression. So in our case, what we need is, we just need the observation, so it would be iris, because that is what would give us the observation. So this is pretty much the switch we have created, and now we can go ahead and um, and use the reactive function here. So I will say dataset input, and now it should display in the table corresponding observations. Let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so here we see the default selection was iris, right? So in the switch, the string was iris here instead of input dollar dataset, and so it started matching in the list, and the first one is iris. Okay, so we got the match, and what is the operation we need to perform? Okay, fetch the data. Iris is saying fetch the data. Okay, so it will fetch the data. All the information will be stored in dataset input, and in the render table we are calling the reactive function dataset input, and that is stored in the output variable table. And in the UI.R we are doing in the main panel we are displaying the information. This is how it is working. So if we select trees, now input dollar dataset will be trees. It will search for iris, no match. Empty cars, no match. Trees, yes, it matched. And what operation it has to perform? It has to display the data. or fetch the observations. Now what we need to do is we need to so far we created the um, table and populated it with the um, observations. Now we have to work out the download handler so that when we click on the download, it writes this information or the observations into that particular file, and it stores in our system. Let's do the further coding. We will create another reactive function, and this time it will be to uh, um, uh, the reactive function will be used to um, uh, take the file format type from the user and use the switch to use the corresponding file extensions. So in this reactive function you will see that we are using switch. We are taking whatever format user wants, and corresponding to that we are telling in the reactive function what extension has to be used in the download handler function. So this is pretty much this reactive function, and it has input dollar type. If it is Excel CSV, the extension should be CSV, so that it will be dot CSV. If it is text TSV tab separated, it should be text TXT. Another form of text space separated, again the file extension has to be text. If it is a doc format, the file extension has to be DOC. So this is something which we are going to use again in our download handler function. Now let's start building the download handler function. Okay, so here we have the download handler, and download handler is created using download handler function, which takes two arguments: the file name, which is a function, and the other argument is content, is another function. What is file name function? So file name function file name is a function which is used to create the file name. So when we're storing a file or data in a file, and it has to be stored in the system, there should be a file name. So this function is used to create that file name, which tells the browser that this is the file name you have to use to save the file. And we are using here the paste function. So basically the idea is, and again it's totally up to you how you want to name the file. For demonstration purpose, what I have done is the kind of nomenclature I have used for file name is I will use the dataset name followed by the extension, whatever extension or format user wants. So since the first one is dataset, so whatever dataset user is selecting, that we are taking from the UI.R from the dataset variable. Here it is, dataset. So we say input dollar $dataset. And what should be the file extension? So if the user is choosing say CSV, what is the file extension? This will come from this reactive function filext. So if the user is choosing Excel CSV or text space separated or doc, whatever, the output of filext will help us. So that's why we are giving the extension, because the output would be either CSV, TXT, or doc. And certainly the iris and CSV has to be separated by a dot, so separator is a dot. So this is kind of a formula we have created here, so that we can get this kind of file name, iris.csv or iris.doc, iris.text, depending on what user is selecting. Coming to the next one, we have content function, and the use of content function is to write the data to the file, and in this case we will be writing the observations from the selected dataset into the file. So the syntax would be pretty much like content function file, and in the parenthesis is where we will add our stuff to write the table. So write.table, what we are going to write in the table? Okay, we are going to write the observations, right? So observations will be there. Right now it's in table format, but when we are storing, what kind of delimiter we want. And so let's first talk about the observation. So how this observation is coming, remember we created a reactive function here which has the observations in it, and this is the reactive function. So dataset input contains the observations of the dataset selected by the user. So the observation would come from this reactive function write.table. Okay, this is where the data is coming. It contains the observations, and we need to just use file here, separator, or what will be the delimiter basically in this case. So for that I created another switch here and stored the data in the sep variable. So what switch is doing here in this statement is it checks what is the format type the user has chosen. If it is a Excel format, obviously it is a comma separated variable, so the delimiter in that case should be a comma. If it is a text tab separated variable, the separator or the delimiter should be a tab worth of space, or tab. If it is just space separated, it should be one space there. And if it is a doc, again I have just quoted it as space. You may want to use a tab here, or whatever you feel. So based on that, based on what type user has selected, the delimiter would be coming from this sep variable, and row names is equal to false. Just we don't want any row names by default. So if we run this app, we should be able to use the app now. Okay, so we'll start with empty cars this time, and I want doc to be I want the file format to be doc, and so I click on download empty cars.doc. Okay, save. Okay, it's saved. Let's go ahead and see the file. Okay, here we have the file empty cars.doc, and I'm trying to open it, and you see that we have the data in